And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. We'll stand and sing to God's praise the hymn 901, the White Book 901. There is a city bright. As Deborah begins, let's stand to sing. Now I'll read to you from the Bible, the Old Testament, the book of Leviticus, and chapter 1. The book of Leviticus, chapter 1, and the first verses of the chapter. The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. He said, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any of you brings an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from either the herd or the flock. If the offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he is to offer a male without defect. He must present it at the entrance to the tent of meeting so that it will be acceptable to the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. He is to slaughter the young bull before the Lord, and then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and sprinkle it against the altar on all sides at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priest, are to put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall arrange the pieces, including the head and the fat, on the burning wood that is on the altar. He is to wash the inner parts and the legs with water, and the priest is to burn all of it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. And there we'll leave it for tonight. Now you know that the book of Leviticus just presses on directly where the book of Exodus leaves off. At the end of Exodus, the tabernacle has been built according to the Lord's precise instructions. It has two great purposes. It will be, first of all, tabernacle, the dwelling place of God. It will be, secondly, the tent of meeting, where the Israelites will meet with God. You know the situation. At the end of Exodus, the tabernacle is fulfilling its first great purpose. It has actually become the tabernacle. The Lord has come down to live behind the curtain. But it has not become the tent of meeting. The Israelites may not enter. Even Moses may not enter. That's the last page of Exodus. And then, on the last page of the book of Exodus, you want to know, how can the tabernacle become the tent of meeting? You turn the page to Leviticus chapter 1, and the answer begins. The answer begins with the 5 big offerings or sacrifices. Perhaps we know them now: the burnt offering, the grain offering, the fellowship offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering. Great descriptions of them in Leviticus chapters 1 to 7. The 5 offerings, we've studied them briefly, one by one, a few details about each one. And now we're going back over them, and we're laying them side by side. And I think we see better what's going on when we do it like that. 6 things are going on, 6 procedures, 6 stages which the Lord requires, which he insists upon, with each of the offerings which are animal offerings. So the grain offering is different, but we're looking at the other 4, the animal sacrifices. And what stands out then, as you lay them side by side, what stands out are these 6 procedures, stages. And I've mentioned that I've taken the wording from a very nice book on Leviticus by Michael Morales, which you might like to read at some stage. But the 6 stages are these. There's the presentation of the animal at the entrance to the tabernacle. Back at home, the animal's been chosen without blemish. It's been walked to the tabernacle. It's still alive now, and it's presented before the Lord. And then there is what he, Michael Morales, calls the hand leaning. You might call it the laying on of hands, or of a hand. The Israelite, the worshipper, lays his hand on the head of the animal. And then there is the slaughter, the killing of the animal by the method God has prescribed. And then there is what he calls the blood manipulation. Different things must be done with the blood. It's poured, sprinkled in different places, depending on which sacrifice. And then there is the burning. The whole animal, parts of the animal, are laid on the fire, on the altar, and the animal is converted to smoke. And then there is the communion, the eating of the sacrifice, which happens most especially with the peace offering. The worshippers share in the meal that's been offered to the Lord. And then he adds a 7th thing, the benediction. Finally, the priest pronounces the benediction. Well, we've looked at stages 1 and 2, the presentation of the animal at the entrance to the tabernacle, and the laying on of hands. Tonight, we'll look ever so quickly at stages 3 and 4, the slaughter and the manipulation of the blood. So first of all, then, that third thing, the slaughter, having presented the live animal at the entrance to the tabernacle, and having laid his hand on the head of the animal, the offerer, the worshipper, as Martin pointed out the other day, not the priest still, it's the normal sinner worshipper of Israel. He kills the animal. So Leviticus chapter 1, verse 5, then he shall kill the bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priest, shall bring the blood and throw the blood against the sides of the altar, and so on. But the worshipper, the normal sinner of Israel, kills the bull before the Lord. That's in the case of the burnt offering in chapter 1. With the peace offering in chapter 3, you'll see the same thing in verse 2. The sin offering, the same thing, chapter 4, verse 4, the killing of the animal. The method for killing is cutting the throat with a sharp knife. You'll read that in different books, websites, and you think, where does that come from in the book of Leviticus? It comes from two places. From the word used for kill in these verses. There's at least one other word for kill in Hebrew, but this word is used for the sacrifices, and it means slaughter. And it either means or implies the cutting of the throat. The other thing which implies this kind of slaughter is that the priests must catch the blood. So chapter 1, verse 5, then he, not the priest, a normal person, shall kill the bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and throw the blood against the sides of the altar that is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priests have to collect the blood in a bowl or something. In other words, the blood pours out in such a way that it can be caught. And so the procedure is one cut in the right place, and then that cut is like a tap. I don't want to make it sound neat and tidy because it's gruesome. But the point is, the blood is collectible. So that's stage 3, the third rite, if you like. The killing, the slaughter of the beast at the entrance to the tabernacle. It's done before the Lord, by the worshipper, by the method of that one cut to the throat. And then there's the fourth rite procedure, the manipulation of the blood. The blood must be collected by the priest, and he must take it right into the tabernacle then, and he must pour it, or sometimes dash it, sometimes sprinkle it, sometimes smear it in different places, depending on which sacrifice you're talking about. So verse 5 again of chapter 1, then he shall kill the bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and throw the blood against the sides of the altar that is at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Now, this is the altar which I think of as the main altar in the courtyard or the outer courtyard. When you come through the main entrance there it is. And the blood of the burnt offering is dashed, it's splashed against the sides of that first altar. The same thing happens in chapter 3 with the peace offering, or sometimes called the fellowship offering. The blood is thrown against the sides of the same altar. You'll see that in chapter 3, verse 2, verse 8, verse 13. With the sin offering, in chapter 4, the procedure, the manipulation is different. Let's take in these verses and notice how different this is. What must the priest do with the blood now, with the sin offering? Chapter 4, verses 5 to 7. Then the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and carry it into the tent of meeting. He is to dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle some of it 7 times before the Lord in front of the curtain of the sanctuary. So he's come in now from the entrance, he's moved right in, and he's come to not what we think of as the curtain between the holy place and the most holy place. He's come to the first curtain from the courtyard into the holy place. And you see what he does there? He dips his finger into, he's got a bowl or something, and he dips his finger into it, and then 7 times he does that. And he sprinkles it in front of that curtain. And then verse 7, the priest shall then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of fragrant incense that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. Now he's come through that first curtain, and there's another altar there of incense. And now he applies the blood to the horns of that altar. The rest of the bull's blood, he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering. That's what they sometimes call the first altar. He's come back through now to the outer court, and the main altar there, back at that altar, it's now called the altar of burnt offering, sometimes the altar of ascension, that first altar. And now the rest of the bull's blood he pours out at the base of the altar. Do you see the procedures here are quite different than with the first sacrifices. And so tonight, let's just ask then, what is the significance of the blood, and where it is being poured, sprinkled, dashed before the curtain, smeared on the horns of the altar? What can we find out about the significance? What is going on? I want to point out 3 things, and the first is this, that as you read these chapters, what you do notice is this, that when the offering is for the sins of an individual or the sins of a family, and so the sacrifice is being brought for that family, then the blood from the sacrifice is not taken very far into the tabernacle. It's taken inside the outer courtyard to the first altar, the altar of burnt offering, and it's sprinkled or poured there, on the sides or at the base. But when the offering is for all the people, some offerings are like that, or for the sins of the priests. The priests sometimes bring offerings for their own sins, but of course the priests are functioning as representatives of all the people. And in these cases, the blood is taken further in. It's taken to that first curtain and sprinkled there. It's taken through that curtain, and it's smeared on the horns of the altar of incense in the holy place. It's taken through the great curtain, even one day of the year, right through to the most holy place where God is, and it's sprinkled there. And the difference seems to be whether the blood, the sacrifice, was representing, being offered by an individual, a private family, if you like, or is it for all the people in some sense? When it's for all the people, It must be taken further in to the tabernacle. And then notice a second thing. The point seems to be that not only are the people being covered, cleansed, you notice that language at the beginning of chapter 1, and you'll see it again, atonement. Atonement is being made. But with the blood, not only are the people being covered, atoned for, cleansed, but the tabernacle itself is being cleansed. The altars are being cleansed. The way to God is being cleansed through the different layers. So there's the outer courtyard, there's the holy place, the great curtain through to the most holy place. We know about these layers. The function of the blood seems to be to cleanse, to decontaminate the tabernacle, to decontaminate the altars. And that function is stated explicitly. Now, I might have missed it, but I don't think it's stated specifically until you get to chapter 16 and the Day of Atonement. And I want you to notice this function of the blood in chapter 16, just verses 15 to 19. Leviticus chapter 16, verses 15 to 19. He shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people, and take its blood behind the curtain, and do with it as he did with the bull's blood. He shall sprinkle it on the atonement cover and in front of it. In this way he will make atonement for the most holy place. Isn't that interesting? He's making atonement for the most holy place because of the uncleanness and rebellion of the Israelites. Whatever their sins have been, he is to do the same for the tent of meeting, which is among them, in the midst of their uncleanness. No one is to be in the tent of meeting from the time Aaron goes in to make atonement in the most holy place until he comes out, having made atonement for himself, his household, and the whole community of Israel. Then he shall come out to the altar that is before the Lord and make atonement for it. He shall take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on all the horns of the altar. He shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times to cleanse it and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the Israelites. I find that very interesting, that the blood is somehow decontaminating, cleansing the tabernacle, the altars. The blood is making sure that no contamination gets through to the most holy place. And that's the great danger when offerings are being made that somehow or other the tabernacle will be contaminated. And remember, there are these layers of protection, buffer zones, the outer court, the holy place, the most holy place, all there to make it impossible for any contamination to get through to where God is. Now it seems that there is most danger of contamination, sinful uncleanness getting through to God when the offerings are for all the sins of the people. It seems that when the offering is for an individual, one family, that sin isn't going to be so threatening to the tabernacle. It's not going to be so deeply penetrating as when the offering's for the sins of all the people. In those cases, the danger is bigger. It's more penetrating. And so the decontamination must go further. You take the blood further in and you do more cleansing, more thoroughly. It's like, as I keep on saying, it's like when COVID strikes, there's all these new procedures, new clothes to wear, take off different layers of decontamination before you get to the operating theatre. The most holy place is the operating theatre. And there must be these layers of protection, so no contamination gets through to God. As I say, I'm not pretending to understand the logic. I'm just saying what seems to be the case, that the danger of penetration, contamination is bigger, deeper when the sacrifice is for all the people. And so the blood is taken further and further in with those sacrifices. So that was the second thing. The first thing was that it does look like the blood is taken further when the offerings represent all the people. And then secondly, it seems to be actually not only atoning for the sins of the people, but atoning for cleansing the place. The altars, the way to God is being cleansed. And then thirdly, this, that God's concern that he will not be contaminated. That's the great thing in the tabernacle. That sinners can draw near to God and God not be contaminated. God's great concern in the end is that his people will not be consumed. If the tabernacle is defiled, if the presence of God is defiled, if in some sense God is contaminated by sin, or he's about to be contaminated by sin, God will break out against his people and they will die. And that's why at the end of Exodus, the Israelites and Moses himself cannot come inside the dwelling place of God. That's why at the beginning of Leviticus 10, Nadab and Abihu are consumed. They've come too near in all their contamination. And God breaks out against them and they die. That's why we have in Leviticus 15:31, thus you shall keep the people of Israel separate from their uncleanness, lest they die in their uncleanness by, how will they die in their uncleanness? By defiling my tabernacle. That's what's going to do it. Defile the presence of God and you die. If contamination comes near God, he will break out against his people and they will be consumed. And so in the end, the blood seems to work like this. The blood actually protects God from sin and contamination. The tabernacle is cleansed, so God remains untouched by uncleanness. And because God is uncontaminated, untouched by uncleanness, he doesn't break out against his people. And that's how his people are protected by and covered by that blood. Well, there we'll leave it for tonight and we'll sing together in the White Book 296. 296. Before the throne of God above, I have a strong, a perfect plea, a great high priest whose name is love, whoever lives and pleads for me. 296. We'll sing it, shall we, Jane, as 2 8-line? As 2 8-line verses. Great.
Satan